Thank you, Rob, and welcome everyone, especially anyone who's with us for the first time. We invite you to our open table where everyone is a member who's committed to acting with respect for difference to end homelessness in Pierce County. Each week, we acknowledge that we meet on the traditional lands of the Salish peoples, especially the Puyallup tribe of Indians, who have stewarded this land for thousands of years and still do so today. The United States officially celebrates Earth Day tomorrow, and all of us who rest on these lands have much to learn from these first peoples about our fundamental oneness with nature and how to preserve the resources we all need to live. Earlier this week, I was thinking about Earth Day and the essential work of environmental justice. I found a haunting poem titled Requiem for a Nest by Wanda Coleman, and I'll share that in a minute. Then in the News Tribune on Wednesday, I learned something about John Armijo, who was living houseless in a tent in Parkland when he was shot multiple times and killed unarmed inside his tent on April 8th. No one has yet been charged in his death. I kept thinking about the ways these two realities parallel and intersect. Earth Day and the call to act, aware of systemic and individual violence inflicted upon a vulnerable planet, and homelessness and the call to act, aware of systematic and individual violence inflicted upon vulnerable people. John Armijo was described as a creative potter, a backup singer for heavy metal bands in his early life, and a good listener to grandchildren. He struggled with addiction for a few years and came to rely on a tent for shelter. This was a vulnerable nest in an unsafe world. His daughter noted a further vulnerability that, she said, the stigma associated with homelessness brought nasty comments from people about his life and made it easy for them to disregard his death. The poet Wanda Coleman speaks clearly about this unsafe world. Today, I share her poem, Requiem for a Nest, and include a response to the poem by our current U.S. Poet Laureate, Ada Limon. Limon connects the world of nature to marginalized communities and counsels us to respond to brutal truth with open-eyed witnessing. Here's Requiem for a Nest. The winged thing built her dream palace amid the fine green eyes of a sheltering bough. She did not know it was urban turf disguised as serenely delusionally rural, nor did she know the neighborhood was rife with slant-mawed felines and those long-taloned swoopers of prey. She was ignorant of the acidity and oil that slowly polluted the earth and was never to detect the serpent coiled one strong limb below. Following her nature, she flitted and dove for whatever blades, twigs, and mud could be found under the humming blue, and created a hatchery for her spawn, not knowing all were doomed. Well, I won't leave us here with that last word, doomed. I'd offer this response from Ada Limon. She says, the first time I read this poem, I couldn't get it out of my head for weeks. Still, it lives in me, unsettled in the chest, a part of my negotiation with the natural world, with the human world. It's a poem that speaks so eloquently and achingly about what it is to live in a world that's unsafe for the tender animal, and unsafe for underrepresented and marginalized communities in the United States. Every time I see a bird building a nest, I think about what could possibly destroy the eggs, eat the fledglings, poison the water and the air. The poem begins in utter beauty, a sonnet about a bird building her dream palace amid the fine green eyes of a sheltering bough. But then as soon as we begin, the danger's already upon us, and we get the most exquisite and haunting sound explosion that's held in the bosom of the poem, serenely, delusionally rural. How often do I walk around my neighborhood and repeat the line, serenely, delusionally rural? The poem, of course, is waking us up to the illusion of beauty, the green park poisoned by weed killers, the creek running over with acidity and oil slick. The illusion of beauty is intoxicating, and yet Coleman doesn't leave us there. The bird keeps building her nest despite the snake, the hawks, the stray cats ready to take her children. Coleman is telling us there are enemies all around. They come with the territory. They're entwined and even hidden by all this beauty. The bird, unaware of all the harm that surrounds her nest, continues to build. There's almost a hope here, a move toward continuation, a survival, and yet she ends with the line, not knowing all were doomed. And we exhale at the end because that is the truth. The word doomed How do you not read this poem and think of the harm we do to each other, or think of the disproportionate effects of the climate crisis on marginalized communities? How do you not think of humanity now, building and building amidst all the looming danger? One of the many things I admire about this poem is that it doesn't let us off the hook. Coleman lets us luxuriate in the language, slant-mawed felines and long-taloned swoopers of prey, and still, when the end comes, there's no holding back. The bird builds and makes a home for her young without knowing they will be hurt. The truth of that ending is that it is ongoing. The cycle continues. But what she has also generously offered us is a witnessing, a warning, so that maybe if we cannot reverse the harm done, we can at least be clear-eyed and informed about what's to come. As Ada Limon advises, in our work to end homelessness, we can aim to be clear-eyed and informed witnesses who cannot reverse the harms done, but who can act together to limit new harms. We can honor the lives of John Armijo and others who have died on these streets, and acknowledge the effects of those, acknowledge the efforts of those who use whatever twigs and tarps they can find to construct an always vulnerable nest. Welcome to our common work. So I hope you have a celebration of Earth Day and that the poem may offer some ideas for reflection. For those of you who are new, we always at this time also emphasize the norms that we follow in our meetings on this Zoom program, and so they'll be familiar to most of you. But just to say, if we will keep ourselves on mute when we're not speaking, if we stop our video, if we're doing things that might be distracting or that we need to step away for a while, and that we use the raise hand function when we want to be recognized to speak. In light of that, one of our community norms is that we make space and take space. So we ask that if people have more to say and want to say more, that they put things in the chat, which we use throughout the meeting as a place for conversation. If you have questions that aren't answered and you're new and you'd like more information, put your questions there and somebody will start talking with you about it, and it could come up later again in the meeting. But that we make sure, knowing that there are 60 of us in the room, that we make sure everyone has time to speak. So use the chat. And one of the things I wanted to say is that sometimes when we go into breakout rooms, anything that's been in the chat before may disappear. So if you want to save the chat for immediate use, you should save it throughout the meeting at various times so that you have access to information about others in the meeting that you might want to have. One final thing is that our meetings are videoed or saved that way and posted to YouTube. And so if you're speaking, you will be featured in a YouTube video at some point. If you're not speaking, then you'll not be featured. So just to know that that's there. And so now we want to take a couple of minutes to have people who are new introduce themselves. And this is not a lengthy introduction, but more your name if you're associated with the group. And then if you have more information or would like to share the work that your organization does, Teresa Power-Drudas organizes spotlight events for us, and she'll put her information in the chat so that you can know to have her contact you about a time to talk more with us about the work you do. So raise your hand if you would like to be recognized to say hello. And I see, Sarah, you have your hand up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can.
I'm Sarah Howe. I'm a member of Tacoma Tenants Union. I'm also a member of Pierce County Association of the Blind, Washington Council of the Blind, Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, and I have just one question. Oh wait, I have been asked, especially by the Washington Council of the Blind, to work with people that are homeless. It's been one of the things that we're working on, people that are homeless that are visually impaired. But I have one question. I'm not able to see the chat, so could somebody email me the chat, please? Because I can't hear it and I can't save it.
That's a very good question, Sarah, and we'll make sure that we do that.
Yeah, I can do that for you, Sarah.
Thank
you
you,
for
Rob.
asking. All right.
All right, now I'm done.
Thank you and welcome. Look
and if
forward
you
to
see-
working with you.
If you see a cat, it's just mine.
All right. All right, anyone else new or here back from being away for a while? Well, if you do want to introduce yourself and hadn't had opportunity at this time to do it, you can put that in the chat as well and say what you're interested in, and someone will be in touch because that's how we do. So Rob, back to you.
Thank you, Rosemary, and can't thank you enough for setting the tone to start these meetings. That's always powerful and good at putting us in the right mindset as we move forward. So let's get started with the standing item that we do every week, and that is to talk about what folks are seeing happening on the streets this week. This is a section of the meeting where we can talk about folks who are doing direct outreach, to see what kind of needs folks are seeing, what kind of changes people are seeing. We acknowledge that the city of Tacoma's sweep of the Union Loop is largely wrapped up, and Richard Dorsett has kept us informed about that situation, but I'm sure there's going to be other observations of what's happened in the wake of that. And so I will stop talking and I'll urge folks to just raise your hand and let me know what you're seeing, and so we can share it with this larger community. We'll get started with Richard.
Just one thing. Yes, the sweep is wrapping up. We have collected some video and are going to be preparing a short video of kind of what goes on during a sweep, so that folks that have never actually been able to go out and witness one would be able to see kind of what the undertakings look like. So that's one of the things I'll be working on in the coming weeks. Also from the street, I guess this is a good news thing. My news feed shows that Sugar Ray Seals got housing, and that was, I didn't get to read the whole article, but I read the headline. And he was on our coalition meeting a few weeks ago, and normally we talk bad news during this session, but I that was kind of cool to see that his GoFundMe had succeeded and he has moved out of shelter. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, the story said that he moved into a 1-bedroom apartment somewhere in central Tacoma, and that the GoFundMe so far had raised about $8,000 to help with his housing costs. Anyone else with updates from what they're seeing on the streets this week? Yeah, Teresa.
So just to report, the G Street mural campsite keeps kind of building back up and then being swept, and sometimes it's just a few tents. This last time on Wednesday and Thursday, the sweep was pretty intense because there were about 40 people around. Not as many tents as there used to be because we have all those NIMBY boulders in place now, but the HEAL team was out here for a couple days. The police were present, and then suddenly there's no one amongst the boulders anymore. And then that ended yesterday, and last night there were about 10 people. There were 2 fires. People started gathering again. So exercise in futility.
Yeah, thank you for that perspective, Teresa, from your neighborhood. Courtney.
I have a quick question for that. Are Tacoma police handing out citations? Like, are people keep returning to buffer zone camping ban zones and being pushed back out, but is the city actually following its structure and therefore blemishing its perfect record?
It looks like Sally is going to answer that question. If you're not, I'll answer it.
Well, I'll just answer it to the extent that the Mid-Hilltop people, one of them reported to me that he's been told he can't be in the park. He was told that he had been observed sleeping in the park, which he said wasn't true. And he was told that he was storing his possessions in the park, to which he said, he replied, "I'm a patron of the park and I have my belongings with me." So the pressure that's being put on people around People's Park is, those messages were reported to me as being delivered by HEAL team members, including a police officer and a HEAL team member. And so I think, Courtney, that might be a mid-range strategy to try to persuade people that what they're doing is illegal so that they voluntarily choose not to do it. But this particular person expressed some anger at being mischaracterized. And I'm just reporting what he said, and I don't have any way to verify one way or the other, but I don't have a reason to not believe him. So.
Thank you. So let me quickly answer that other question that was in there, which is that no one that I spoke with had received a citation, even though many of them have been here a number of times. So I don't know what the meaning of that within the law, that I don't know how that will ever get come into play. And if it does, I think there will be legal consequences.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. Let's see, Sarah, you have your hand up, and then Ryan.
I have a question.
Sure.
You're gonna have to pardon my ignorance, okay? I was there when they were ignoring our pleas to not pass the ban on camps. And
Mhm.
I have a really stupid question, and I'm sorry that where do they think that people are supposed to go?
Yeah, that's not a stupid question at all, because that's the same question that folks who are homeless are asking. They're not really getting any guidance on that. There's, there are limited shelter spaces available, and no like condoned space where people can be referred right now where they can just go. So that's not a stupid question at all. And it's the same question that people who are being moved from one space out of a space ask every day.
It's just I'm working with someone who can't even get into a shelter and they need a place to shower.
Yeah.
He just called me this morning saying, where can I shower? I'm like, I hope I have an answer for you.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, that's a good question, Sarah. Ryan?
Kind of talking about the same group of folks up by People's Park, but they've kind of taken a strategy where everybody's got a tarp, everybody's got a shopping cart, so they have their stuff, and then around dusk, they kind of circle the wagons, so to speak, and use their tarp to build a makeshift shelter using their carts and stuff as support. And then they sleep, and then they fold up their tarp, and they're completely mobile now. So it's like sweeping them is irrelevant, because they just move across the street and okay, we're gone. And then they'll be back, and they've been setting up under the awning by Seymour in the same area. But this whole sweep thing that the city's trying to do, they've already figured out. And I've seen this behavior adopted other places around the city because they talk. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. And David, I see you have your hand up. David, maybe you stepped away. You're muted right now. There
Okay,
you go.
sorry. Yeah, I'm a MHT at Wellfound, and I listen to this on my wife's computer every week, and thought this might be a good place to come and ask. That we're having a candlelight vigil on, and this isn't directly related to homeless, except for the fact that most of my patients are homeless, and their care and therapy and treatment and trying to get them on the road to recovery is sort of my responsibility. But we're having some issues with safety and staffing, and we can't get fully open. And so there's a vigil. Now, it is sponsored by our union, which is the SEIU Healthcare Union. It's on April 27th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the corner of 19th and Union. And it's to help us to raise awareness for behavioral health workers' safety, patient safety, and staffing, and there's a fair wages component to it. But I'd like to invite people out because it might not be directly related to what's going on the street, but I see the tragedy. I see them losing their stuff. I see them not being able to go back out. They're not being put back out on the street and it's safe. And some people come in are so traumatized by what is happening inside the hospital, and that they won't come out to participate in therapy, and they're very resistant to like going back out on the streets. So they're scared to be there. They're scared to go back out on the streets. It's a very sad, disheartening situation to see for 48 hours a week. And I just thought that maybe getting my message out to come and support the people who are sort of working just behind the front lines to help maybe get these people in a position where they can start getting out of the situation they're in. We need your support. It's very dangerous. I've been assaulted several times. I've had a nurse got assaulted yesterday on my shift. And it's because, and I've heard you guys talk about one of the problems is how do you keep people in the business? How do you bring people in? How to pay? How do you keep them in the business? In our system, there's also a special thing. How do you keep people safe? So they're having trouble bringing people in and feeling safe. And therefore they can't open up the thing. This has been open in the community and paid for by our taxes. And it's been open for 3 years and they aren't even at 50% capacity yet in 3 years. And those are beds that could be used to help people through some of the roughest times imaginable. So that's my spiel. So it's the 27th, the corner of 19th and Union, and it's from 6 to 8 p.m. I don't know how good a candlelight vigil is when it's still light outside, but I'd appreciate if anybody could show up. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And do you want to put a summary of that in the chat? Do you have that ability?
Yeah,
That'd be great.
I'm going to learn it.
Awesome. That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Melinda, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, this is actually King County Federal Way, but it may have some residual effect for Pierce County. There was a hotel program here in Federal Way that ran out of cash, and there's about 100 people that are now at risk of being homeless again. And I know our staff has been scrambling to try and find housing for these folks, but I just wanted to, I'll put the link in the chat, but just wanted you all to be aware.
Great. Thank you, Melinda. And sorry to hear about that. As folks may be aware, there's also been an issue in Tacoma with the Winthrop Hotel and an electrical fire that has forced the residents out. And a number of those folks are staying at the Lighthouse Center, getting temporary shelter, but maybe Caleb will offer an update during the city update, whether there's a timeline for when those folks will be able to get back into the Winthrop. Those are low-income housing opportunities. So let's go to Patricia since you haven't spoken yet, and then we'll come back to you, Sarah, to close out this section of the meeting. Patricia?
I just wanted to speak specifically of the hotel program through the one that is in the news. KCRHA has taken the lead on that.
I'm here.
Hello?
Sorry, that was my computer.
Oh, okay. There was like letters written and help that reached out, I know that some of the individuals are not looking for not wanting the outcome that might be. So I'm just saying that it's not that it's gone unnoticed. And it's disappointing that this is the way it's going, but I do know KCRHA is heavily invested in making sure that there's opportunities for that folks, from my understanding. So thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. And then Sarah, why don't you go ahead and make one more comment and we'll close out this portion of the meeting.
I'm just concerned about the people at the Hotel Winthrop because a lot of them have disabilities, and I don't want them to end up in assisted living or something like that, because that happened to, I'm a certified peer counselor. That happened to one of my clients, and now basically everybody's telling her what to do. She has no rights of her own, and that would just cause mental health damage to the people who have lost their housing. I'm just concerned about that.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I think there's a lot of folks in the community concerned about the issue at the Winthrop and similar situations. So thanks for raising that up, Sarah. All right. So let's shift to our, oh, real quick, we wanted to do a reminder for everyone of the public memorial service, a celebration of life that is scheduled for Saturday at 1 o'clock at Point Defiance for Maureen Howard. We all miss Maureen and miss her impact since she departed to better places, and we hope that folks who are healthy and able can attend. Again, it's at the Point Defiance Pagoda on Saturday at 1 p.m. and it's open to the public, so anyone is welcome. And come out and celebrate Maureen if you have the opportunity. Anything you would add, Teresa? No. All right. So let's shift over to our community spotlight for today. And we have Sarah Jacobs here from WorkSource to talk about WorkSource Pierce Housing Security Coordination Program. So Sarah, you want to take it on?
Hi guys. So I'm Sarah with WorkSource. Our program is the STEP program. It's stabilization training and employment program. What we do is we use our current programs, which is the WIOA program. I don't know if anybody's really heard of that. It's a program where everybody who is underemployed or not employed at all can gain services that will help them achieve stability through employment. With that said, this new program, it's a pilot program through Pierce County, and we are, the first qualification is that someone is homeless. The second qualification is that they're a Pierce County resident, and the third is their income. As long as they meet all three of those barriers, or not barriers, qualifications. Sorry, I got barriers on the brain today. As long as they meet those qualifications, we can enroll them. And it's a 8-week cohort that they're enrolled into. During that 8 weeks, we break down everything from their goals, what they want to do, what does their career look like. How I've explained it in the past is, personally, as a career advisor, I want someone to have a job that they're going to stay at. I don't want to see them back on my caseload in 3 months. I want to see them achieving those goals, achieving their stabilization, whatever that looks like to them. Because I know we all have like what we think is self-sufficient is not going to be the same for everybody. Somebody could have 20 hours a week at work, and some people think that's not stability. That's, if it works for them, that's stability. That's our goal, is to gain that stability that they need in their way. Trying to think of all the questions that were on the sheet. Does anybody have any questions a little bit? I know it's kind of like a little bit.
Let's see. So Teresa, I see you have your hand up.
Can you talk a little bit about how people get referred to your program and who you are particularly aiming these at?
Yes. So for someone to get referred into the program, there is a referral link that is given to agencies that we've correlated with. So if you are not an agency, you can email me and we can put that referral in that way. If you are an agency, please reach out. I will gladly come. I mean, right now I'm at the Salvation Army because I'm at every shelter. A lot of you have probably seen my face and know my face because that's just how I do. I will gladly come to whatever shelter, whatever. I will meet you at a Starbucks to enroll you into the program. I will meet you where your needs are at. But yeah, referral link. I can't give that straight out unless you are an agency. So I will need you to email me and I can give that referral link out to you once we've established exactly what needs to go in. What was the second part of your question, Teresa?
So I guess wondering if there's a way that someone who is experienced in homelessness could contact you directly, and it sounds like it would be through the Salvation Army where you're set up.
No, that's just the agency that I'm at today. I'm at every agency. I work with WorkSource. They can contact through WorkSource through our WorkSource Pierce page. I can put that in the chat in a minute. And that can be a self-referral line into WIOA. But if they specifically want to go into the STEPS program, which is the 8-week cohort, they will need to reach out to me and we can correlate that way. My work email, I will put that in there. You guys can have at it. Give it to who you need. I mean, if they contact me, I'll contact them back. My information is for everybody. We've always said that WIOA is the best kept secret, but I don't want to be a secret. Please share me, share my resources. I want to help everybody. And as long as they're willing to find employment with me and go through those steps in that process with me, I'm willing to do the same. I will put in as much as I'm getting out.
Awesome.
What
So
is-
Norman, I see you have your hand up.
Hey, Sarah, how are you doing? How long are the cohorts? Is it like a full day? What does that look like?
It's 2 hours a week for 8 weeks. So
2
all
hours
I'm asking is 16 hours of their time so that we can give them the tools they need to be self-sufficient in employment.
So you're saying you could hit it in one single day, the particular material for that week?
For that week, yes. So in the class, you only have, there's no homework, there's no like extracurricular activities. It's just that 2 hours, and we cover everything that is needed during that time for that module. There's a lot of people on here and I'm nervous. I'm sorry if I'm like
Well, don't worry
You're
about
doing
it,
great.
Sarah. I saw the material. It's an excellent program. I just wanted to know the format. I know. So it's 8 weeks. You're only 2 hours a week, and you're covering a lot of great stuff. So keep up the good work.
yeah, it's resume building, soft skills, hard skills, career exploration. So if someone comes to us and they don't know what they want to do, that's my favorite. To be honest, that's my favorite because then I get to explore everything. We get to nitpick every little field there is to go into.
Do you want to explain to everybody what WIOA is and what the criteria is? A lot of people don't know what WIOA is on this coalition. I can help you out if you want.
Yes, please have at it.
WIOA is the Work Opportunity Initiative Act. Career team implements it. There's I believe an adult one and a youth one. I believe you have to have SNAP benefits or Apple Health, some type of subsidy. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yes, and if you don't receive, as long as you are under the federal income limits, which is for a household of one, it's $13,000 a year.
And there's like displacement, or if you were unemployment, I think those are also criteria that they're looking for. It's a great program that offers training opportunities. I mean, there's a lot of services, and then you get a lot of employment services. So the program that Sarah's talking about is absolutely incredible. Keep up the good job. I'll shut up now.
No, please don't. I hate when it comes to meeting with our VIPs and our clients one-on-one. But in big meetings, my brain, like everything I had written out, I don't know where that document went. It's just going straight from my head today.
Yeah, that definitely happens. Well, we appreciate you being here, Sarah. If you can drop, as you mentioned, your contact information in the chat. And then also if you have a link to just kind of some basic information about the program, that would be, I think, appreciated by folks as well. And you'll see, if you can see the chat, there are a couple of little questions. Maybe you can address those in the chat.
Yes. There is no pamphlet or handout for steps because it is so brand new. but I do have a WIOA flyer that I will gladly send to whoever needs it. I can't post it straight in here, but I will get it to you guys. You guys can email me and I will send it that way as well.
Awesome.
Do we have employers to direct hire? So we have at WorkSource, we have so many hiring events. You can literally, I say that I walk in the morning and there's a new hiring event. So on our webpage, you can view the calendar and it'll show you all the hiring events that's going on.
Great. Yeah, if you could just post that link to the website, that would be awesome. And we thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you.
And let's see, so we need to move on into our next item in the agenda. And Mark, would you like to tell us about Miracle Messages? Oh, and actually, before we do that, Jan,
Yes.
did you want to do an introduction here this morning, or did I miss the opportunity?
I can't talk. I have.
No,
one.
not. So Jan Hutchins is who I was referring to. Sorry about that. And it looks like maybe Jan's having some challenges with her setup. So let's just go ahead and shift over to you, Mark, and we'll let you talk about Miracle Messages.
Yeah, hey, thanks so much, Rob. I'm gonna pass it along to our operations director of operations, Madeline. This is her first meeting, and she can give you the full scoop of our programs, and I'll put in a couple items in the chat too. But take it away, Madeline.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk to everybody about Miracle Messages. I'm the Director of Programs and Operations, and I get the honor to work with Mark as we transform lives of people that are currently experiencing homelessness. We have really two programs that we offer to people that are currently unhoused. Our flagship program is our Family Reunification Program, and that program really allows us to ask an individual whether we do the ask, whether a partner does the ask, or they may call our 1-800-MISS-YOU hotline. But we're able to ask somebody, is there any family that you'd like to reconnect with? Family is a broad brush. It could be a loved one. It could be a favorite teacher from high school. And so we're asking this question of someone who's, currently very isolated, very disconnected in a lot of ways from society and from others. And so we really hope that by asking that question, if someone says yes, we're able to break down that sense of relational poverty. And so that question has been asked a lot of times. And to date, we've been able to successfully reconnect close to 800 individuals. And these individuals have been disconnected from family for a multitude of reasons. But, one of the reasons we find is they simply lost their family member's phone number. And when we reach the family, sometimes we'll hear, we have been looking for them. We have a missing persons report. And so we've been able to reconnect families, and in some instances, take someone from being unhoused to live back in the family home and be able to give them not only the connection with the person that they asked us to look for, but with their entire family. We have had reconnections. The average reconnection, length of time that someone's been disconnected is like 10 to 15 years, but we've had a few that have been 60 years. So if you can imagine, can you imagine being reconnected with a brother, and now you're meeting not only your brother, but potentially your brother's grandchildren, right? Like you all of a sudden have this whole family. We did, with Mark's amazing work, we were able to reconnect an individual right in Tacoma. His name is Michael Patrick. He was disconnected from his family for 25 years. Mark's going to drop in the chat some information about that reunion if you want to read a little bit more. But we were able to actually connect him with his mom and they're living now where they're able to connect on a regular basis, and they're living not together but in the same property, I believe, right, Mark?
Well, they're actually under the same roof on.
They are now?
Yep,
Awesome.
on the north side of Tacoma, where he in
Awesome.
the same house where he
Yeah.
grew
Yeah.
up. So after 30 years of no
Yeah, it's
contact.
amazing. And Mark's going to pop in the chat if you guys want to watch. There's some really beautiful stories and videos, since it is kind of in your neck of the woods, So that's our flagship program. We've been doing it for about 8 years. About 2.5 years ago, when COVID hit, close to 3 years now, actually. Yeah, 3 years. Time goes too fast. When the city of San Francisco started moving people into the shelter-in-place hotels, they recognized that these individuals would yet feel even more isolated, right? They have nobody, they're in their own room, they can't leave their room. And so the city of San Francisco approached our CEO and founder, Kevin Adler, and we developed a program called Miracle Friends. And the Miracle Friends program, we were thinking it would be a great program, during the pandemic, where what we did is we matched one volunteer with one individual for weekly phone calls and text messages. And so they're building a friendship. Again, a way for someone not to feel so isolated, right? And so we started working on this program, and guess what? People love it. It's not going anywhere. We have about 260 matches right now of individuals, that are individuals that are currently experiencing unhoused, homelessness, with a friend. So there's a volunteer friend, and I have friends from all over the country, all over the world, volunteers all over the country and world that want to be in this program. And so really the focus of our programs really is about breaking down the feeling of isolation that people that walk the walk alone, of being homeless, that are sometimes not seen. And we believe that our unhoused are not problems to be solved, but people to be loved. And when you love people, their problems will be solved. And so those are really our two programs, our two main programs. And then I'm going to take questions because I know we didn't have a ton of time and I wanted to keep that short. And I see a couple of questions over here. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions while I read the chat? I'll go read the chat in a minute, but any hands up or anything?
Not seeing anybody raising a hand right at the moment.
Okay, cool.
Oh, here's Teresa has a hand up. And then
All right.
Norm.
When no one else asks a question, I always do. So what is your funding source? How are you funded?
We are funded through private donations. We are funded through grants. Yeah. So we don't have, we don't have like state or federal funding or anything like that. So yeah, it's all private donations and it's grants. And if you're interested, if you Google Miracle Messages, and Google.org, we just received close to $1 million from Google.org, a grant from them to run our basic income program, which is a program I didn't talk about, but because for sake of time, but that program connected with the Miracle Friends program is allowing us to randomly select individuals that are currently experiencing homelessness for $750 a month for 12 months. And so we have funding like that, Teresa, that comes in to really help us manage and run the programs. We're a team of only 9. We're a small team. We are spread out all over the country. All right. And then I think, was it Norma who had a question?
Norman.
Sorry,
Call me Norma. That's all right. My wife does.
I'm sorry about that.
I happened to run across 2 people that I was doing outreach with today that wanted to get reconnected with family members in other states. Are you saying you pay for travel costs and or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. So we don't have funding per se to pay for a train ticket or anything like that at Miracle Messages. But if we were able to reconnect somebody with family and they you know, the family's like, can you get them on a bus? Can you get them on a train? Can you get them here? We partner with a really amazing group called Neighbor Share, where I can submit up to $250 to at least help cover the cost. So if we had that situation, we would have a way to try to help. You know, we do what we can, you know, we want to try to help it in any way that we can. So yeah, if we were part of the facilitation of that reconnection, then we would try to see if we could help. Yeah, absolutely.
I think if you partner with Coordinated Entry, they have diversion funds that could reunite a person with a family. I was just trying to just give you a little heads up. That's the way I was going to go with it. But the Coordinated Entry will require that you get a letter from that particular individual saying that you're going to accept them, that their name is on the lease and they have the right to be there. So if you can put your information in the chat, I'd love to reach out and talk with you sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to put my info over there.
And the homeward bound, I know it's called different things in different areas, but most commonly called homeward bound, that where law enforcement agencies will assist somebody to get home if they have the name of somebody, a point of contact, kind of like what you were explaining as well. So that's a lot of times people don't have a contact number or address for the person they're trying to get in touch with. So we can kind of intervene and locate that person on their behalf, reach out to them, see if they're willing to reconnect and put them in contact. And hopefully that'll lead to them reconnecting in person and finding housing. So.
Great. So there's a question from Jennifer in the chat about what percentage of clients are you able to reconnect with family? Our clients often have the perception that their family would not be interested in reconnecting with them. So I'd like to have data to counteract that.
So Mark, what would you say percentage wise?
Question. I would say probably 75 to 80% of the families are thrilled, they're overjoyed, they start crying when I share with them that their unhoused loved one is trying to reconnect with them. And there are those where they will respond, it's they burned so many bridges already, and it's just not, we don't want to put ourselves out there again. But they might say, I'm not willing, but my mom has really been asking about them, and let me get you my mom's phone number. So, and it's a double opt-in. So we don't share anything with our clients unless their loved one says, yes, please, I want to talk to them. We'll do a conference call with them, help facilitate that discussion. And I'm just constantly amazed at the impact that it has, not only on the person who's unhoused, but their family members who are just, have been grieving over the loss of this person in their lives. So
yeah. And just a couple other questions I see here. Thanks, Mark. We do not deal with children, so we won't search for children, and we don't help children. It's just, a lot of the work that we do is done by volunteers. Actually, all of the work we do pretty much is done by volunteers. Mark is not a volunteer, and he will handle some of the more complicated cases, as will Gabby, who runs our case solving community. So yeah, children is not something that we have dipped our toe into, both searching for and I just wanted to mention that. What other questions? I see Alan's got his hand up, and Sarah.
Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce and add to what Norman said, that if somebody's experiencing homelessness, that Coordinated Entry can assist in physically reuniting people, even if they have been through Coordinated Entry and are sitting and waiting in the priority pool. They can come back to Coordinated Entry, and we will still help them out. So that it would be a great connection, I think, between Miracle Messages and the coordinated entry system.
Yeah, Alan. And the thing is, you know, I know that in like, as you're saying, in some coordinated entry systems, you know, like the first questioning a lot of times is there any family you can go live with? And, you know, it's, if the response is, I think so, but I don't know how to get a hold of them, our hope would be, please hold, let's get Miracle Messages on the line and let's see what we could do, right?
Yeah.
And even as you're connecting with, you know, your clients and those that you serve, you know, if you sense that they are, you know, like you might hear somebody say, oh, my mom's birthday is coming up. I'm doing a lot better now. I'd love to let her know, but I don't know how to reach her. Miracle Messages, you know, or maybe you have a client who is really struggling now that they're in housing because they feel even more isolated, which I know sounds crazy, right? But we all know that happens. And so maybe for the success of them to stay in housing would be a friend, a miracle friend to chat with, you know, to be there, compassionate listener. And so what our hope is, and I put my information over in the chat, but my hope is, you know, as each one of you are now connecting with those you serve, now that you know we exist, we're maybe a nice addition in some way to those you serve by helping people just not feel so alone. And as we all know, people heal in community. And so we want to help build and be part of that community for every single person, but you know, clearly we can't do that. So we're starting small, right? And so if anybody wants any additional information, please reach out to me directly. Like I said, we can do referrals on our website. We have paper forms if it's easier to write things down. You can email me, you can call 1-800-MISSUE. So we have many ways that we can do an intake. Our case solving to find family does take a little bit longer, just because there's information that we try to gather to do that successful search. Our Miracle Friends is a little bit quicker. You know, we don't need that much information about somebody. So yeah, I mean, we would love to engage with you, talk to you. How can we become part of either the intake process or part of, you know, when you sense someone might benefit from our programs, how do you get them over to us?
Right.
And Sarah, you had your hand up. I apologize.
I have a question, and it's
Sure.
actually kind of a sad question, really. What do you do with somebody whose living family is not reliable, and the family that would want to help them is gone?
Yeah.
Passed away.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
That's a
And
situation I'm actually dealing with right now.
yeah. And
There's
you know, it
nowhere
is
for this person to go.
Yeah, Sarah, it's definitely heartbreaking. And you know, there are times where we do run into that. Either the family's not able, the family really has tried everything and they're just not in a space where they can offer anything. And so in situations like that, you know, we need to go back to the person, you know, that's looking for their family, particularly if they came to us on their own and there's no case management. And we need to just say to them, hey, this isn't the right time. We're really sorry, but we were able to deliver your message. So we always ask for a message. If we find your mom, your dad, you know, what would you like us to tell them? And, you know, the message could be something simple like, I love you, I miss you, I'm sorry. And so even if the family is not ready for that reconnection, or maybe is not able, knowing that your message was delivered does help. It helps maybe with closure. It helps in a lot of different ways. And sometimes what we find is the family, maybe Sarah, end up in a better situation. They will reach back out to us sometimes a year later and say, hey, can you still get a hold of my son? Because we're ready now. You know, and then we just pray we can still get a hold of the son, you know, which sometimes can be a challenge too. But yeah, Sarah, so we really try to just make sure we do it obviously as best we can. And then we'll offer the Miracle Friends program. Hey, we're really sorry that, family didn't work out right now, but we'd love for you to still have somebody to chat with once in a while. Would you like our Miracle Friends program? And so it's kind of a nice companion program, the two together.
Is there something you could do for somebody who has no family, mother passed away? They could use a miracle friend.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
absolutely. We would love that. And
I'd love your number. I'd like to nominate somebody for the program.
oh, absolutely.
Wonderful. That's great, Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah, thank you so much. I can put my phone number over in the chat as well.
No, I really need that chat.
Yeah, and it's something, yeah, the Miracle Friend program is amazing. And then asking a question, is there anybody from school, anyone they are from the old neighborhood that they would like to reconnect with? As Madeline mentioned, sometimes, the loved one is not an immediate family member, but somebody, an old teacher, somebody they served with in the military. We get a lot of those saying, love to be able to reconnect with somebody I served with over in Afghanistan, and we just lost contact. They're like, they're closer to me than any other family member I have. So kind of, as Madeline pointed out, family is a very broad term, just any kind of loved one that they would like to reconnect with.
And Norman, it looks like you have another question.
I just wanted to say, great question, Sarah. And then first of all, in homeless services, reuniting people to their families and establishing those networks are so vital. I mean, it's the best part about the job when you reunite someone with a child or a family member. So gosh, I love your program. You had me at hello.
Yeah. Oh man, thank you so much. And I'm just gonna make another little plug because we're always looking for volunteers too. So if you have people in your life that are like, I love what you do. I don't know if I could do that, but I'd love to make a difference. They could volunteer with us either as a digital detective or as a miracle friend. The amount of time is really pretty small. It's not a huge amount of time, but the impact is tremendous. And it's transformational, truly, not only for the individual, but for the volunteer. And I'll just end because I know we ran over on this one quick thing. I had a miracle friend for a while. Her name was Tiffany. And she was really hard to get a hold of, as we know, can happen. But one of the things she said to me that I will take with me every day is she was in a shelter-in-place hotel, and she said, I don't think you understand how important your calls are to me. She said, I don't talk to anybody for 4 years. I have not had a conversation with anybody. She says, you have given me back my voice. You have given me back the understanding and the knowledge that what I have to say matters. Mm-hmm. Now, if that doesn't give you goosebumps, it gives me goosebumps every time I say it, because that's the power of just listening and showing up. That's the power. We all know you walk down the street and you smile at someone who's unhoused, you made that person's day. Yeah. Imagine how a phone call once a week can have an impact.
Yeah.
All right. So that's I always like to end on, because that's just cool. My favorite story. Well, it's my favorite stories, but that's a cool one.
And I'm actually I'm down in Tacoma a bunch. I live in Renton, but I'm down in Tacoma visiting, working with people down there with Michael, whose story I posted that Matt Driscoll did a really nice article about Michael about 1.5 years ago. So yeah, and I put my number or my email in the chat. Tacoma's my second home. I went to UPS way back in the day, so near and dear to me. But yeah, thanks for all your time.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just looking through here. Rob, I don't know if there's any other.
No, we do need to move on to the next item on the agenda. So I really appreciate the time and coming to share with us about the program. And I think we would love to get people reconnected with family and friends and community. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. And if you
Thanks,
want to
Rob.
send out my info to everybody on the call, that would be amazing. All right.
Perfect.
Have a great day, great weekend. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so we have hit the 10 o'clock hour, so I'm gonna shuffle our agenda a little bit and have our government partners do their updates, and then we'll roll through the rest of the agenda after that. So let's get started with Caleb. Do you have any updates from the city of Tacoma?
Good morning, everyone. I have one that I heard that was requested with the Winthrop. But the first one is as you all know, Holy Rosary opened up this week. I touched base with Alan. He's going to give an update about what's happening there. One of the big impacts that we typically see when we open up a shelter is then we get a lot of requests, which is again pretty exciting and not necessarily surprising, of individuals that do need safe parking. And so it's good to have a place to refer them to and connect them with, and we continue to keep doing that work. On that message, I see Jeffrey looking dead at me in my eyes, and just wanted to give an update on that one. Nothing has changed, Jeffrey, in terms of the actual content. Just going through the chain as normal commands, and so we're super excited to add that to the array of being able to support people who are living in their vehicles as their primary shelter. So thanks for all that work that you're doing, Jeffrey, on that. The second one is with the Winthrop Apartment. Yeah, currently, as of yesterday, there were about 55 individuals that were staying at our lighthouse. From that, we just got an update yesterday. It looks like it's going to be about a couple of weeks or less until they can get into extended stay. The actual property management is actually working with each individual, along with the Department of Emergency Management on the city side, to get those folks into something that's going to be a little bit more stable, because there is going to be an extended stay need for them on the work that needs to be done. And then they'll continue to keep having those communications with those individuals, the apartment building, with updates on the work that's being done so they can get back to home. So that's the only update I have now. There is a shower trailer that has been delivered to the lighthouse site, so there's showers on site while they actually help those individuals with the short-term emergency stay. And then one other one specifically to Richard. Allison wanted me to mention that she is working on your request, and she'll probably get back to you today.
Great, thank you, Caleb. Let's shift over to any updates from Pierce County Human Services. Didn't think I saw Jeff on the call. Anybody else on the call from Pierce County who wants to give an update? Okay, maybe not. Let's shift then over to the folks from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department.
Hey, everybody, this is Jenny. Good morning. Hopefully I'm coming through clearly. We're having some internet issues at home.
You are.
Intermittently, so okay, we'll go for it. Real quickly, DOH has the State Department of Health has updated guidance as of, I think, the 13th, so last week, in their document that's called What to Do If You Test Positive for COVID-19. And I'm going to share a link to that. I, in all transparency, have not fully reviewed it. But you know, as things go along with the pandemic, and as things are slowing down, they're changing their recommendations. And so I wanted to share the latest with you. If you have questions, please reach out. And then you may have heard that CDC and the FDA are trying to simplify COVID vaccine recommendations. I'm not sure they've succeeded. Still a little bit cloudy to me anyway. But we, as always, kind of wait for our state DOH to make a statement before we change things in our clinics and things like that. But the basic sort of bottom line is that the monovalent vaccine is going to be going away in favor of the bivalent, which is great news because it's effective against the more recent strain. So when we get really clear guidance, I'll share share via the listserv, sort of, I'll try to make it concrete for folks in terms of understanding, are you up to date? What do you need to do to be up to date? There are going to be recommendations for immunocompromised and older folks to go ahead and get a second booster. But for the general population, that's not the case yet. So I guess I'm just telling you things are coming from me, and I will try to put out some information that's clear when we know more and when I can kind of wrap my head around it. Please feel free to ask me any questions in the chat. I'm going to pass it over to Isaiah. He has an important update for you all. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Hi, y'all. So my updates are relatively brief. The first is that the deadline for the inclement weather RFP with TPCHG is today. So it's today at 3 o'clock. So I know some of us procrastinate, including myself. So if there's anybody here that still wants to apply, you have about 5 hours left. So that is the biggest update. So we have some applications, but we're always welcome to have more. So just keep that in mind moving forward. And I can share the flyer to that as well in the chat, just to make sure people have access to that. The second smaller update is that we're still conducting our qualitative I shouldn't say data, but information gathering. So TPCHG is still looking for people who are providers, who are shelter managers, who are working in the community to give us, half an hour of their time to share some information about health impacts they're seeing on the ground with people who are experiencing homelessness. We are able to provide gift cards for folks who are able to give their time. So we want to compensate you for the time that you can give us. There's 4 really brief, pretty simple questions. So it would either be me or our contractee, Sally Perkins, speaking with you. So we are still looking for participants for that. So if you or anyone you know would like to be in touch, please reach out to me. So those are my 2 major updates, unless folks have questions for me about either one of those.
Well, I see a couple of folks with hands up. Caleb, I don't know if you had a question particularly for health department folks, did you?
No, not for health department folks. I'll let people go.
Okay. Okay. And Sarah, your hand's up as well. Did you have a question for the health department folks?
Actually, I do. I've got a person I'm working with who is unable to apply for inclement weather, to do the inclement weather application. I can give you his phone number, but I can't use the chat or anything to do that. But last summer he was actually hospitalized several times for heat stroke and being overheated. He's legally blind. Is there anything I can do or that he can do?
So Sarah, I think that application is for providers to pull together resources for response to inclement weather rather than help for individuals related to inclement weather.
Yes, that's correct, Rob. Yeah, so it's for providers. So there in the RFP, there's no specific, we wanted to make it as broad as possible. So there's no specific definition of what orgs can or cannot apply, but it's to support organizations who are doing work around homelessness, to support their services, to support them getting supplies, to support their staff. So it's relatively flexible in terms of what it can be, but yes, it's more for orgs and general populations rather than individuals.
All I can do is ask.
All right, thank you, Sarah. And I don't see any other questions for health department folks. Caleb, can we come back to you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know probably I saw Tammy just actually go off screen, it looks like. I want to remind everybody the amount of work that it takes to actually provide shelter in terms of an operator and an organization, and especially one like Fob Hope. I won't give details or specifics. Tammy could do that, but I know that they had a particularly rough week this week. And if you all could just give good vibes over in that way, in that direction with, the continuing challenge of working with a population that has a lot of needs and a lot of support with the veterans. And just wanted to make note of that, just because we got a few email traffics from them and just want to be able to give some prayers and good vibes to them. So thank you, Rob.
Thank you for that, Caleb. Go ahead, Monique.
I was just going to say thank you for that, Caleb. Tammy has been having a rough time, and anybody who can just give her a pat on the back or something, pump her up. We've had a lot of struggles there with the clients in terms of health.
Thanks, Monique. I think, Tammy, we're all here to be supportive. And if there is a need to reach out to the coalition folks, please do. We're all community here. All right, let's see. So that gets through our government updates. So let's shift back to some of our agenda items that we didn't get to yet. The first one is, Dana, would you like to spend a few minutes talking about coordinated entry and the priority pool, kind of just a snapshot of the status?
Sure. Can I screen share here?
Yeah, let me give you that ability here, just a second. All right, you should be able to do that now.
Okay, this is a diagram.
And we're not seeing it yet for some reason.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Well,
Technology.
I know it. Let me go back to. Oh. Okay, here we go.
Ah, there it comes. Except we're just seeing your Zoom screen at this moment.
Right.
There we go.
There.
Ah, perfect.
Okay, so this is a diagram that pretty much is kind of a map way, we call it the map, through the coordinated entry system here in Pierce County. And so on the left side here where you see coordinated entry doors, we have a list of all of the entry points into the coordinated entry system. So if anyone experiencing homelessness goes to anybody on this list, somehow they will be connecting and getting to the right place where they can have their appointment, which is the blue and the red in the middle. And so that represents the diversion conversation. And so after this appointment and the whole system has been explained, the household or the client makes a decision at that time. And so it's their decision if they would like to take the diversion option, which is pretty much designed for low barrier households that might have just had a bump in the road and they just need a little bit of help, one-time financial assistance to get back into some kind of a stable housing situation. And so you see that in that little house there, those are the ways that we have been able to get people into housing. And one of them is actually relocation, like Miracle Message was talking about. So we do that, and that would be a perfect fit for us to communicate with them. And if they don't choose a diversion option, the next option is what we call the priority pool. And so all these people in there are waiting. They are hoping to get a referral to a longer term housing program, which could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months to, or if it's permanent supportive, as long as you would like. But the problem with that is that we actually don't have enough resources for everybody that is sitting there in the priority pool. So when they're entered into the database, there's an exit date, which is 90 days out. And so if they don't get a call during that time, they have the ability to reconnect with the system and request that they go back into the priority pool for another 90 days. Okay. And they can literally do this as much as they would like. But in the priority pool, we have a system now that recognizes the people with the highest barriers and who are the most vulnerable. So when there's an opening in a program, the system has a way of figuring out who at that very given day has the most vulnerabilities and the most barriers. And they're the ones that get the opportunity to accept the referral and go into housing. So in reality here, we have the pretty, I guess you could say, high functioning maybe households that can go through the diversion option and not necessarily have to enter our system. And then on the other hand, the priority pool recognizes those that really haven't been helped and need a lot of help, more so than a lot of the other people in the party pool. So therefore you have top and the bottom, and the people in the middle are not necessarily getting any services. So I just have a couple of graphs here to show you. Let's see. And it'll kind of give you an idea of what we're facing, you know, with the challenges in our county. This first one is simply showing where people are going homeless within our county. And then the graph over here on the right is pretty interesting. It's from just last month, March. And the lighter shade is people who have entered our system in the month, and it is not the first time they have been homeless. The darker shade is people that are experiencing homelessness for the first time, and that is 70%, which is pretty interesting. And then we look at other things. On the left here, what we have is the columns represent the percentage of that race in our county. And the little diagonal lines, or the horizontal line, represents the, well, no, I got that the other way around. This is the population, is the horizontal line. Okay, so we have about 60-some% white people in the county. Then you go down here to the column, and it shows that there's less than 40% of that population that are homeless. And when you look at the Black community, we have the column, which is roughly, it's showing a little bit over 20%, which is of the actual population that are homeless. And then we cover all different races. And diversion exit by destination is something that we always take a look at. And the bottom red is if when they exit, they go back into homeless, and the green is that they become housed. And then there's a small portion of institution. And so now that is a very interesting graph there that we've had a lot of discussions about. As you can see, the Black community, when they enter into diversion, they're more likely to get back into housing. So, and this is just, the top one is the total diversion conversations by year since we started way back in 2016 or late 15. And we now in 2022 have gotten up to 6,200 conversations. So, and then the outcomes is another graph that we find extremely interesting. So the diversion conversation outcome. So when they've had their conversation, do they choose diversion or don't they? And so the bottom light color is those that decline diversion, and the top darker color is those that accepted diversion. And it's gone down, as we can see. A lot of this, you know, we're looking at 2020. A lot of it has to do with the economy and the pandemic and the rents and the whole ball of wax. So that's pretty interesting there. And then this is diversion exit destinations by year. Again, we have, and also the bottom shows the amount of money that we spend in diversion every year. And right now, 222, 549,000 we spent last year. And this is the returns to homelessness. And on the bottom, these are various housing options that people have: permanent supportive housing, transitional, rapid rehousing. But diversion on the bottom here is quite interesting because we have 77% no return. And these are, and then the red are after 6 months return, 1 to 2 year return. So you can see that that is pretty successful right there. And this final graph is something that we focus on because it's very important. At the top line is by month, the number of households that go into the priority pool. So in March, we had 404 households go into the priority pool. And during that same month, we had only 73 referrals to housing programs. So as you can see, there's a lot more need than there are resources. So that's kind of a snapshot of what's happening with coordinated entry.
Great. So there were a couple of questions in the chat. One in particular about whether this data is publicly available anywhere.
Well, to my knowledge, I'm not sure. I don't think it. I think it should be. Alan, what do you say?
Well, it's actually not publicly available. I don't know that it, I mean, we could find out if it could be made available. This data is put together actually by our data manager here at Catholic Community Services. I think we would need the county's permission to make it publicly available.
Okay. Yeah, it's helpful to know that I think a number of us knew that this data exists, and there were points in time in the past when Garrett would provide, yeah, as Oneida said, you just did make it publicly available, but in the past, Garrett would give us little snapshots of this, and I presumed it was running a report that was happening that, but it's good to know that this kind of data does exist and that there's really no reason why the county couldn't make it available on the county website. So that's helpful.
Yeah, that's true. And I say that just to say that it is county data, so they are really in charge of it.
Yeah. Ryan, I see you have your hand up.
So many questions, so I'll keep it short. First is, I'd like to see more information on the actual priority pool. I see the circumstance where somebody's kind of a low priority person goes into the priority pool and they never get picked because they never bubble to the top. So somebody could figuratively be in that pool for years and never. So, but we don't have any data to kind of watch it. So, maybe something like priority 1, 2, 3, and we can see the numbers in it. And then another thing is just the overall presentation of like your 6th slide where it kind of shows month to month the gap. If you did it cumulatively to kind of show like, this is the trend and now we're 1,200 behind, now we're 1,500 behind, and now we purge the roles so we stay at 1,500, but it's not making the problem go away. That kind of stuff I think would be useful. Also categorizing the people that are waiting for whatever type of housing, something to quantify that so that, policymakers as well as the general public and nonprofits can kind of see, oh, there's, the biggest demand is in this segment. So if I was going to do something new, I'd want to do it in this segment. I'll stop there.
Sure. Actually, by studying our system, we understand it's not perfect. And we do realize that there's probably a lot more people that qualify for permanent supportive housing, but there's just not enough of it. And there are times when people that probably need that get referred to rapid rehousing, which is it's a short-term subsidy program. And oftentimes people, when they go through that and it's time to exit, their housing isn't sustainable. And so we're studying, but you got to understand every day the priority pool changes. People go in and people go out. So it's not like you're on a list and you're just waiting to get called, because daily you're competing against others. And as I say, we have the system figured out. that, you know, at that very given time, the ones that are most vulnerable will go to the top and get that referral. So I know it's not perfect, but we are striving to continually improve it, if that helps.
Great. So as we expected, there's a lot of interest in this topic and a lot of chatter in the chat as well. We do need to move on, but I do see Norman's hand up. So go ahead and ask your question, Norman.
Could you just post what Diversion Services does? I know it reunites houses and everything else, because I mean, a lot of the service providers use diversion and we add additional funds to get people housed. So maybe just listing what diversion does makes it a little easier for us.
Well, the primary goal is for the client to determine what path they want to go down as far as getting rehoused. Now, sometimes that might necessitate that we purchase something, you know, like maybe a pair of work boots if the employment is the barrier to getting them into housing. But for the most part, it is usually spent on the actual housing costs, the move-in costs, or the train tickets or bus tickets. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Dana, for jumping in and sharing the information. And as you may have seen in the chat, some folks are already reaching out to the county to see about kind of daylighting some of these numbers on dashboards. So it's helpful to see this information again. And I think we're going to periodically touch base on this just to kind of get a sense of what things look like about the inflow and outflow in the priority pool, because I think it's helpful to when we're considering the overall impact of the work that the system is doing to help people who are homeless. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm looking at what's left of our agenda, and we've got about 33 minutes left. I did want to carve out a couple of moments here for Richard to talk about a project that he's doing to help support Tacoma READS. So Richard, go ahead.
I'll be quick. Can you put the slide or photo up on the screen?
Yeah, I'll do that.
So just 4 things I want to touch on. Last month during the mayor's State of the City address, she announced 3 titles that are going to be part of Tacoma READS for the current year. And they have, each of them has to do with housing instability and homelessness. There is an adult title called A Place Called Home, which is a memoir. A young adult title called Genesis Begins Again. And then another one for younger kids called Home, which is also about housing instability. What I would like to do, what I'm starting is just a project. I'd like to support what the mayor and Tacoma Library is doing to get as many people reading these books as possible. In my short time working homelessness, the one thing that I've noticed is that if we can change how people think about homelessness, we can change somewhat how they talk about homelessness, leading to better policy discussions. And reading books like these, I think, can lead to that. So I'm doing 3 things. I am currently this week talking with publishers. I am trying to get cheap, free, inexpensive books. I can find some of this stuff out in the secondary market, but trying to get as many books as possible as cheaply as I can. And the second part of that is once I get the prices down, I'm chasing money. I've had probably about $1,100-1,200 already come in the door. So I've got money sitting there that when I do get the price, I will be able to go out and purchase books and get as much value for the money as possible. And I'll be chasing other money. And then the third part, and I guess this is why thank you, Rob, for letting me talk about that, is distribution. Want to get these books out to schools, libraries, little free libraries, and in particular, many of you are likely in reading groups about town and the county. And if these titles could be considered between now and November when the authors will be in town doing more of a public process, that would be welcome. Those that can buy the books, I encourage you each to read them, buy them and read them. But what I'm working on is trying to get them as inexpensively as possible, raising the money, and then any help that folks might have for how to get them distributed to those that might not be able to afford them. I would welcome that. So when I'm done talking, I'll get my email in the chat. So that's it. That's really what I'm doing. I don't want to take lots of time today. Maybe you can do updates down the road as I get pricing and have books available. And if you have ideas for people that maybe could or should be reading these titles, I would welcome that information. So that's what I got. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard, for that. And Sarah, I see you have your hand up.
You know, Richard, I need to contact you on a professional level. I'm actually a member. I'm a newly installed member of the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library Patron Advisory Council. Now, the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library is for people who are blind, visually impaired, or have difficulty holding a book physically, or have dyslexia or any other print-related disability. If you want to get these books out there, this is the way to do it.
I have not heard that part of the discussion yet, but would welcome that. I think that would be an outstanding way to get these copies there.
I'd like to get your email. I'd love to get your email.
Okay, we'll coordinate that offline through Rob, and I will be in touch.
Yes, please, Rob.
Yeah, and if you got, Sarah, if you did get the email with today's agenda, Richard's email is in that, but
Hot dog.
Yeah.
I can get him in touch with the director. I've got contacts.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's a brilliant idea. That's the kind of, I wouldn't have necessarily thought of that, but that's the kind of reading population that would be outstanding if we could get that out there. So thank you.
Absolutely, no problem.
All right. So thank you, Richard. Let's go talk about our breakout review from last week's discussion and the panic that folks had from the email title that Timothy used when he shared that this week.
Yeah, that was fun. I didn't mean to panic everybody. I just meant to put a little clickbait headline on sending it out, and I will continue to put clickbait headlines on those. So forewarned is for something. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because this is like one of those things where what people's feedback really largely aligned. I separated it. We talked about whether we should shift to hold a meeting per month in person, and people's concerns around that really kind of aligned, and some solutions arose as well. Some arguments in favor is that, well, obviously in-person provides a better option to talk directly to other people and meet and chat. Pre-COVID, our meetings were more diverse, and that was one of the leading suggestions for why to return to that from time to time, to bring more diversity to the meeting, particularly if we held the meeting in a place in Tacoma where it was easy for people to get to who are homeless or otherwise who are less able to attend the Zoom meetings, but would show up in person. Some of the cons to meeting in person, those fairly aligned as well. people said, hey, we've got this social going on once a month. You should just come to that because that's an opportunity to get together in person. That's working pretty well. There's concern that in-person meetings might limit who can participate. That comes up a lot. And the acknowledgement that we've gotten more participation and exchange of knowledge with Zoom. And again, that seems to be working fairly well for us. In terms of some of the issues that came up, if we do return to meeting sometimes in person, it would be great not to do it on Fridays. A number of people talked about how hybrid meetings take work and take sex support. Again, the location would be important if we were to meet in person, and that previously some of the larger provider groups permitted staff to attend in-person meetings. That hasn't been the case really since COVID. That's an issue. And then there was a whole section where I just put people's feedback about hybrid meetings, and you know, the general feedback was concerns that hybrid isn't good for either seeing meeting room participants, and that hybrid meetings are also tough on people who are dealing with hearing loss. And then of course, owl cameras, I put a link in there, was suggested as a possible solution to that. And then, you know, under the headline of great minds think alike, nearly every group that talked about this reported in their notes that there was discussion about maybe going to a quarterly in-person meeting that would be more special. And there seemed to be a lot of support for that as a solution that kind of meets the concerns halfway. And again, the notes and resources list follows. If there's something that people want to see popped in there, just stick it in the links and I'll take care of that.
Awesome. Thank you, Timothy. And I did want to say, I appreciated everybody participating in that conversation last week and in the breakouts on this topic. I just think it's good that we get the temperature of the group and evaluate what people are comfortable with going forward. I think we heard pretty clearly that there is some interest in doing some more in-person stuff, but that there's a lot of value in what we're doing right now on Zoom still. So I think heard the message. The steering committee and governance committee will talk a little bit more about the feedback we heard, but just appreciate everybody participating and wanted to let people know there's no need to get too concerned. We're not going to make any huge changes in the near future. So thank you. Let's see. Thank you again for the review, Timothy. And let's see, we've got 22 minutes left in the meeting. Why don't we still do a 10-minute breakout for folks to be able to network for a little bit? And today is just a very simple question for people to network. It's an opportunity for folks to introduce themselves to each other and talk about what do you do currently to support the homeless community, and we'll go back to a good old favorite. How do you keep going? So let me set up the breakout rooms again. If you have if you could have somebody in the room, in each room, take some notes and put those in the chat when we come back. That would be great. And we'll go for 10 minutes. So I'll bring everybody back here at 10:49. Well, welcome back, everyone. Whoever was in your room taking notes, please go ahead and put those notes in the chat. And I know 10 minutes feels really short, but you know what? We only have 10 minutes left in our meeting. So speaking of feeling really short, real quick, I'm gonna skip the advocacy updates and just encourage folks to join. If you have the capacity and interest, join the housing advocate call that will happen on Zoom this afternoon at 2, that's hosted by the Housing Alliance. As you know, the legislative session wraps up on Sunday. So we're in the final lap, essentially, of the long race that is this long session in the Washington State Legislature. So join that Zoom call at 2. I will drop the link in the chat. It's also in Timothy's document that he sent to all of us and also dropped in the chat earlier. But this will be our last weekly housing advocate call of the session. And then briefly, Tacoma City Council on Tuesday at their study session, there is one item that I think would be of interest to some folks here. That is that they're going to get an update on the city's equity index and how that's being used. So that's one of 3 topics, I think, on the study session agenda at noon. You can attend that meeting by going to the city website and clicking through to the Zoom, or by showing up in council chambers at noon. No public comment at that meeting, but at the 5 o'clock meeting, community forum happens again this coming Tuesday. So that's an opportunity to talk to the city council about the issue of homelessness and housing, affordable housing, and let them know what we think of things like sweeps and what is happening on our streets around the community. So just wanted to make people aware of those opportunities to engage. Briefly, I know Jan has laryngitis and cannot speak. So Teresa, do you want to talk about Safe Sites for All briefly?
I'm going to be very brief. I'm just going to say those Monday meetings are awesome. Jan never plugs her own facilitating in the way that I can. They're a great place to come and talk about the sweeps, the safe parking, the things that are immediate about what's going on with homelessness in the big neighborhood. The link is on the website that Rob so wonderfully maintains. Come on down.
Yeah, and that website is pchomeless.org. And Alan, you read my mind. I was hoping you could give a brief overview of how week 1 has gone at Holy Rosary.
Yes, I can. We are open. I encourage people to look at that information in the chat. I will also be sending that information out to the listserv. We have gotten referrals. We actually still have a lot of space available. So look at our referral number in that information and also the eligibility. One story I do want to tell is our first person on our wait list that we accommodated as we brought them into the program. We discovered they were a veteran. We hooked them up with our Supportive Services for Veteran Families, SSVF program, and they actually got housed within a day. So we had an immediate success story with our very first referent. Anyway, check out that information. We are open and available and have a lot of openings.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan. And I'm sure it's going to take a little bit of time for folks in the community to understand about the new resource, even though it was covered quite a bit in the media as you kicked off. So thank you for that update. How about coalition committee updates? Rosemary, did you want to mention the governance meeting coming up?
I think that's all I'll do today, and I'll save the race and equity for next week. Have a little fuller description. But governance work group is re-meeting again. We met for a long time initially to say, who the heck is this coalition? And this is who we are. So, but we need to come back around again to say what's working and what might work better. So if you're a person that's interested in process and making sure that inclusion happens, I think we have more information about how to be accessible that we even received and helpful. Thank you, Sarah, today for sharing that what you need and able to be able to participate. So we need to make sure that we have supports for various folks who may want to participate with us and cannot in the current way we do things. So that's a meeting that will be on at 11 o'clock on Monday coming up the 24th. from 11 to 12, and the link is on the web page for people to join. So welcome if you're interested.
Thank you, Rosemary. And that gives us, okay, Sarah, I see you have your hand up.
What's the website?
It's pchomeless.org.
pchomeless.org. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So we got about 4 minutes left and some open time for some good trouble announcements, good of the order. So let's start with Jennifer Ammons.
Well, this is technically neither, not a good trouble announcement, but following up about veterans and getting veterans housed. I'm with Northwest Justice Project, we're legal aid, and we've heard a couple of times recently people being told that they need to get prior evictions off their record before they can apply for a VASH voucher. And that is not correct. You can get a voucher, whether it's regular Section 8 or VASH voucher, whether or not you have evictions on your record. They may pose a barrier to actually getting to use those vouchers though. And so you can refer those people to Tacoma Pro Bono or to Northwest Justice Project. We may be able to help them get those evictions off their record.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anyone else with items that you'd like to share with the 39 of us who are still here? I'll note that Jan Runbeck dropped in the chat a reminder about the next social get together for the coalition that will happen on Thursday, May 4th. It's the first Thursday of every month. That starts at 4 p.m. at Scamp Brewery down on South Tacoma Way. And you're encouraged, if you have the capacity, to bring something to share with others. If not, just show up. It's just an opportunity to have some in-person networking and support each other as we continue to do this work. Others with things that they would like to share? Yeah, thanks, Kenny.
Mr. Facilitator person.
Yes.
I need to contact Tacoma Pro Bono because I've got the person I'm working with, I need help with because I can't do anything. I mean, I'm at a point where I can't do anything. This person needs legal help.
Mm-hmm. So are you able to, I know Tacoma Pro Bono is doing most of its, the easiest way to do contact is through the website. Is that right, Lori?
Yeah, there's several ways. There's an online intake form on the website, so please use that. But you can also, Housing Justice Project, which is where you would want to go, is now, it has its own door, 601 Tacoma Avenue South. It's right in the corner of 6th and Tacoma Avenue. You can walk in 9 to noon, 1 to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, so they can do an intake right there. So that's, if that's a possibility, that's a good way to do it. Otherwise, online. Phone also works 10 to noon and 1 to 3 p.m., but that's Monday through Thursday. So, and the person needs to do an intake. So those are the ways to do that.
We're gonna have to do it on phone because the problem is the person is legally blind and I'm not very good. A lot of websites are difficult with my screen reader, right. The one that was babbling earlier this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a lot of
That's fine. You can call on Monday morning.
All right,
they can
thank
do
you.
It over the phone. Yeah.
You have a good
And
day.
you just would it be helpful if Lori said that phone number? Would that be helpful?
Actually, if somebody could send it to me, put it in the chat and email me the chat, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll email you the chat after the meeting. So Lori, if you want to just drop that in the chat, that'd be perfect.
I've got friends in low places and high places.
It's good to have friends.
Hey, friends are good. That's one
Anyone
thing.
else with any last updates they'd like to share as we hit the 11 o'clock hour? All right, so we've filled 2 hours. Thank you, everyone. It's great to see everybody. Hope everybody has a safe weekend. And if you have any interest in helping us plan next week's meeting, we'll stay on this Zoom and in about 5 minutes do some planning. Otherwise, everybody have a great week, and we'll see you all here next Friday.